Hello book lovers, and welcome to or welcome back to my channel. Today is a very exciting video that I have been looking forward to doing ever since Becca announced that she was doing Becca's Bookopoly again this September. So today I will be doing my September TBR using both Becca's Bookopoly as well as my TBR. All right, so I will go ahead and link Becca's announcement video down below if you would like to take part. She, of course, has the documents with the instructions as well as the board and the chance and community cards that you can print off. I will also be playing my game, so if you are interested in seeing the instructions for how that is played, or if you want to see last month's game, since that was the first time I played it, I will go ahead and link the playlist up above and down below. So I will go ahead real quick and just start off by saying the cards that I pulled last month. Even if I didn't finish, which I technically didn't and probably won't, even though there's a few more days left in the month. I'm not going to be taking a punishment this month, but rather I will be taking it in October. So I will always be taking the punishments in the following month. That way, in case I film early, I will know for sure if I need to take a punishment or not. So since last month was my first time playing the game, I will not be starting out with any punishments this time. All right, so last month for roll number 1, I got red for romance, and the prompt was, I got green for fantasy, and the prompt was a book under 300 pages. So I read Radiance, which is a fantasy romance. The next prompt was red for romance, and it was to read a hyped book, and I read The Spanish Love Deception. Roll number 3 was black for horror, thriller, or mystery, and I chose The Passengers because the prompt was a word association and the word was resist. Roll number 4 was once again a red for romance, and it was to read an audiobook. I chose to read 7 Days in June. I have not read this book yet, and my Libby hold has not come in either, so I'm hopeful that it'll come in. Today is the 20th, so we still have 11 days, so fingers crossed. And the final roll had been yellow for contemporary, a book with animals on the cover, and I chose The Unhoneymooners. I have not read this book, and I don't really have any plans to read it this month, so chances are in October I will have at least one punishment prompt to start off with. All right, so this month I have a few books that I definitely want to get on. I'm still working on my Aurelian prompts. Last month I kind of blanked on that, so I created my TBR not having those prompts in mind. So I gave myself 2 months to complete it. So I will try to get all the remaining books that I need for that on this. Otherwise, I don't have too much other than maybe some series that I would like to continue. So without further notice, I will go ahead and jump into the 5 roles that I will be doing for my game, and then we will jump over and do the 5 roles for Becca's Bookopoly, and hopefully we can double up on a few of those. All right, guys, so I have the board set up based off how we ended last month. So we will just go ahead and do our 5 roles. Starting with our color die. Red. Perfect. I have a lot of romances that I want to read this month. 6. All right, let's see. That's 1, 2, 3. I can't take my red out again just like last month because the little person is there. So I guess I'll be moving this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, let's take a, oh, look at that. LGBTQ plus author. So a book with a queer author. All right, so the first role was a romance, and we got a LGBTQI plus author. So for this book, I went ahead and selected The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. TJ Klune is a queer author, and all of his books do have a relatively prominent romance in them. This book is also being used for my Aurelian prompt. It'll help me get a Q in conjuration. I need either a bone on the cover or the word bone, and that is on this cover. So this book, I don't know too much about it. I honestly bought it because he said that this cover was going to be replaced since Tor, I believe, is going to be publishing a new cover for it. So I went ahead and picked it up. So it seems like this book is about a man whose life is just not going so great. I think his parents have passed away and he's lost his job, and his brother is not really there for him or doesn't want anything to do with him. So he escapes off to their family cabin where he meets a man and a young girl. And I think the girl might have some unusual powers, and some people are trying to get to her. So he, I guess, is going to, kind of protect them and most likely have a romance with that man. So I'm hoping this has some really great found family in that. TJ Klune does a really great job with those, as you've probably seen in like most of his books. So I'm really looking forward to being able to read another one of his stories. All right, roll number 2. Purple, historical. All right, let's see. Don't have too many of those on my TBR, to be honest. It's not my favorite genre. 2, 1, 2. I just realized I didn't replace that other guy, so I'll go ahead and do that. LGBTQ plus. Good thing I love to read queer stories. All right, so for the next prompt, we got purple for historical, and that was LGBTQIA plus. And here's my little, there it is. All right. And so for this one, I decided to select Heaven's Official Blessing. This book will come up later for one of the other prompts. I believe this book, it is fantasy, but it seems to be set kind of in like ancient China, I think, because I remember the show was in Mandarin, I think. So that's why I'm assuming it's China. I apologize if I'm wrong. I believe the story is about a prince who was raised to godhood, but keeps screwing up, but then keeps being like such a great guy that he keeps getting brought back into godhood, and like everyone's kind of annoyed with him, except for this guy who's like in love with him. So I have to admit, I don't know 100% what's going to be going on in this story. I think I watched the anime of it like a couple years ago. It seems to involve like spirits and things like that. So it's slightly paranormal, historical, fantasy. And of course, it is queer. So I'm excited to finally get to one of these authors' books. I know like a ton of them have been getting translated recently, and I've seen a lot of people reading them. So I'm glad to be able to get on that train. Choo choo. All right, and on to roll number 3. Black. That is a horror, thriller, or mystery. 6. Let's see if we can take out a new one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can, but I kick out one of my purple dudes. All right, so that means I have to fulfill this prompt for a horror thriller mystery, and then I have to go ahead and take a punishment prompt as well. So let's go ahead and start with this one. So a horror and thriller, a short book. I actually had this last month. I guess it's the same prompt. So under 300 pages. And let's go ahead and just take our punishment prompt. Shuffle these bad boys up a little bit. can't remember what's on here, but I'm really hoping I don't get a classic or the over 500 pages mark. Ah, one of the two I didn't want. A classic. All right, so up next we got Black for horror, thriller, mystery, and we pulled a short book again. So maybe I should leave these prompts out so I don't, you know, keep getting them over and over again. But it worked out because I would like to read The Dumb House by, I think his name is Vintage Burnside, or is that the... I feel like I had this problem before where I was like, who the heck is the author? But I think his name might be Vintage Burnside, which is kind of a cool name. Oh, his name is John Burnside. His name is John. I don't know why that says vintage. Oh, maybe because this is a classic. I think this is called, yeah, so Vintage Classics, and his name is Burnside. So maybe he owns the company or something. Anyway, this is a thriller, I believe, and it is also going to help me with my Aurelian prompt. It'll get me a D, which is a good thing and not a failing grade in this case. It'll get me a D in animal studies because I need a hair. I need a hair on the cover, and that is available on the copy that I have. So I believe this book is about a man who heard that at one point someone had isolated, back in ancient times, a bunch of children to be raised by mutes to see if language came to them naturally, or if it is something that needs to be taught. So he decides to recreate this study with his own children. It seems his children developed this kind of musical language that they use to communicate with each other, but he can't understand it, and he seeks to punish them for that. So, I mean, I'm hoping that there's not too much like child abuse in this or anything. I mean, if the dad ends up dead, I mean, that's what you get for being abusive. But I heard about this from Cody. Her channel hasn't been active for a while, but I will go ahead and link it down below anyway in case you want to check it out. You probably know her, she's a bigger booktuber. But it definitely, the synopsis interested me, so I'm really excited that I can get to it. Plus it's super short. All right, and we did unfortunately need to take a punishment, and we got one of the two that I didn't really want, but it ended up working out actually, because I want to reread 1984. This is the last of the 6 books that I need to reread. I mean, technically I still need to reread Into This River I Drowned, but that'll be done by the end of this month, hopefully. But this is a book that I read in high school and really remembered enjoying. But sometimes when you read a book in, you know, an academic setting and then you read it for pleasure, it's just not as good. But I do enjoy a kind of dystopian novel, so hopefully this will live up to what I remember, which is not much. It seems like this is, like I said, a dystopian society. I believe this is where Big Brother comes from. People are really watched, and I think their lives are very much controlled. And there's a lot of things they're allowed to do and not do. And a man decides to start breaking some of those rules. And we'll see his little forms of resistance throughout this story. All right, let's move on to roll number 4. Wee, that's a lot on my hand, but let's go with it. It is a yellow, which is contemporary or literary fiction. Another 6, so I'll take this bad boy out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Pick these up. Owned TBR. So that's good because I'm trying to get through my own TBR, and I have a few contemporary on there that I've been putting off. All right, and next we landed on yellow for contemporary, and we got a book off of our owned TBR, which is great because I'm trying to get through all of those. And for this one, I definitely knew which one I wanted to choose. It's a book that I have been trying to get to forever, and I'm so glad I'm finally getting it onto a TBR, and that is The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett. This is a book that is on my 22 books to read in 2022, and it follows two sisters who are white passing, and they go and lead relatively different lives. One of them decides to take advantage of the fact that she's white passing and lives life as a white woman and marries a white man, and then the other woman goes ahead and lives as a black woman. And I believe we follow not just the sisters, but also maybe their daughters or like their children in general. So I think it's a really interesting concept. I'm interested to see how their lives differ, who's happier, and obviously it's won awards and is super hyped. So hopefully I love it as much as everyone else. All right, and the last roll for this game. Blue, sci-fi. We're getting a little bit of everything this month. Another 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whew, almost took out another guy. Mental health rep for sci-fi. Ooh, I might actually have a really good idea for this one. All right, so for the final roll on this one, we got sci-fi with mental health rep. And sorry, I haven't held these up for the last couple. I keep forgetting. But as soon as I pulled that, I knew exactly what book that I wanted to read. And that is Winter's Orbit. Let's see, Everina Maxwell. This is a book that I have heard only good things about. It's sci-fi. It seems to be relatively political, but it's also queer, and because I'm choosing it for this prompt, also has mental health rep. So it's got a lot of stuff going for it that I typically enjoy. It seems these two boys are put into an arranged marriage after the husband or fiance, I can't remember if they're married yet, of one of them dies under somewhat suspicious circumstances, and I believe the two of them are just trying to convince everyone that this allyship is, you know, working out, while also trying to solve the mystery of one of their husbands, fiancés, whatever he was, his death. So I don't know too much else about it, but that's totally fine for me. I am perfectly fine going into this somewhat blind and just having a good time. All right, so those were the spins for my game. Now let's go ahead and get right into roll number 1 for Becca's Bookopoly. All right, guys. Sorry for this not so great angle, but it's the best that I could do for now. So here is the Bookopoly board. We have our 2 dice, and we'll be using this little glass chicken, as our little moving piece. Then we have our community shelf cards. I believe are prompts from that I wrote last year when I played this game on my own, so I honestly have no idea what's in there. And then we have our chance cards, which 6 of those are from my These 6 Books Will Self-Destruct video, and the other 10 are the remaining books on my 22 books I want to read in 2022. So I'll be starting with 5 rolls, and of course if we roll a double, we will go ahead and do an additional roll. All right, so we're starting out with a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so people. So the first roll, there's got to be people on the cover. All right, starting off strong with a prompt to have people on the cover, so we can already double up because I will be reading The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, which has the 2 sisters, you know, kind of in collage. Would that be called a collage? I don't even know. But, you know, they're people. So I'm going to go ahead and count that for that. All right, and roll number 2. we have a 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Published before 1999. All right, that might actually work out considering my punishment prompt was a classic. All right, and next we went ahead and landed on a book that was published before 1999. Now I could have used either George Orwell's book or what's his name, Burnside's book, but I went ahead and selected Burnside's book just because, you know, by reading this book in this way, I will go ahead and accomplish 3 things at once for my TBR game, Becca's Bookopoly, and as well as my Aurelian prompt. So this book is a pretty heavy hitter now, so I'll definitely have to prioritize it. All right, roll number 5, hopefully second to last. Ooh, a double. All right, so that means we'll be doing 6 rolls, and we got 2 6s, so that'll be 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, community shelf. Let's see what I wrote last year on these little prompts. Oh my god. I mean, this is kind of nice, I guess. It says, buy a book. So I need to buy a book and read that. All right, so we got the prompt to pull a community shelf card, and it was buy a book. And I'm gonna cheat just a little, just because I'm trying not to like buy too many books, and I just recently bought a few. And in fact, I recently bought one that arrived within the last week. So I figure, you know, it's close enough. It's a book that I just recently bought. And that is Eidolon by Grace Draven. And this is the second book to Radiance, which I read earlier this month and absolutely adored. So I was really eager to get further along in the series. So I'm gonna go ahead and just, you know, cheat a little bit with this one just so that I have an excuse to get this book on my TBR. This is a fantasy romance book that follows our 2 characters who are from neighboring kingdoms, but each kingdom is of a different species. She is from the human species and his are called the Kai, and they are lower down on the totem pole. He is the second prince, but his brother has produced so many heirs that, you know, he is like never gonna see the throne, and she is the niece to the king. So they decide that they are going to align their kingdoms together by marrying these two to kind of dissuade, is that a word, dissuade, the third kingdom from trying to attack one of them to gain access to their ports. So this was kind of a allyship that happened in hopes of avoiding a war. So the 2 of them find each other rather repulsive, but they like each other's personality. So they are friends pretty much from the beginning. Their interactions are really sweet, and they fall in love throughout the story. So definitely interested to see what happens in book 2, because something pretty bad happened at the end of book 1. So the world might be in a little danger. All right, roll number 5. Oh, my chicken fell over. All right, and that is a 5 and a 1, so that is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Highest rated, so I'll have to go ahead and check my Goodreads and see what book is the highest rated. All right, so we got highest rated. So I went ahead and went on my Goodreads want to read list to see which book was the highest rated. I was gonna say which book had over 200 ratings, and this one I don't think did, but I was like, you know what, I want to read this book, so I'm just gonna choose it. And that is Heaven's Official Blessing, which I already talked about earlier. This is why I went ahead and chose this one for my historical one, which might be like a tiny bit of a stretch because it's more fantasy, but I definitely wanted to go ahead and double up as much as possible. All right, coming at you from the other side for roll number 3. All right, that is a 10, a big boy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I believe that was a random emoji generator. So I will have to go ahead and do one of those and choose a book. I'm assuming that goes with the mood of the emoji. All right, so for this prompt, I got random emoji generator. And I went ahead and recorded it on my phone, so hopefully that turns out okay and is showing here at this very moment. But I ended up getting one of those little bells that are present kind of like at hotels and stuff. So the only book that I could really think that would work for this is The Maid by Nita Prose. This is a book of the month book, so I'm getting 2 book of the month books on my TBR. I like hardly ever get around to reading these. But this takes place in a hotel. It is kind of like a mystery. We have a maid who seems to be kind of on the autism spectrum. She's not as good with like social interactions as other people, but she seems to be pretty good at her job. One day, one of their regulars, I think he's a regular, pretty important man, is found dead in his room. And because of her behavior, the police assume that she's the killer. So she's like, let me go prove that you're definitely wrong. So I haven't heard the greatest things about this book, unfortunately, so I am going in with slightly lowered expectations, which sometimes works out in my favor because I might end up, you know, liking it more than everyone else because I didn't go in thinking it would be amazing. All right, and roll number 6, which is hopefully our last roll. And we got another 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A building on the cover. All right, guys, our final roll, and we got a building on the cover. Now, I'm gonna need you to pull out your magnifying glass because we are going to be using Winter's Orbit. And if you look there, that's a building. So we're going to be using Winter's Orbit for this prompt as well. All right, so those are all the books for the prompts for the 2 games. The only other book that I wasn't able to get on that I would kind of really like to read this month is The Raven King, which is the final book for the Raven cycle. So this is the final book in the Raven cycle. I'd really like to finish it up. This will probably be one of my lower priority books this month. Even though I do read them relatively quickly. We'll see. I am done with school. I finished school yesterday, literally. So I'm, officially done with my bachelor's degree. So that's exciting. I will hopefully have a bit more time to read. But this is just a YA kind of fantasy magical realism story that follows Blue and 4 of the Raven boys as they hunt for a Welsh king that is supposedly buried on one of the ley lines. Whoever finds the king is supposed to be able to be granted a wish. So I'm just really enjoying the characters' interactions, and the writing in the story, and am of course hoping to complete a series. Pretty please. All right, so those are all the books that I'm hoping to read in September. There are only physical books and I also read audiobooks. So it might be a really big reading month, or it might also be a complete failure because I put too many physical books on my TBR. Guys, let me know down below if you are taking part in Becca's Bookopoly. I will, of course, would love to check out your TBR video, or just let me know down below what books you'll be reading for that, or what book you're looking forward to the most. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting my channel by watching. I hope to see you guys next time. Bye!